Hello, world. This is Hello Chaos, the podcast about the ups and downs, highlights, and low points of entrepreneurship, where we just get real about what's going on and hopefully have some things to share that you can use in your business to move yourself forward, or just know that you're not alone. I am your co-host, Jennifer Oladipo, aka Jenno.
And I'm Jennifer Sutton, aka JJ is my nickname. And today, very excited to have Jules Okafor. I hope I pronounced that right. Okafor, with Revolution Cyber. Jules, welcome to the Hello Chaos studio for calling in. And where are you calling in from, by the way?
I'm located in Dublin, Ohio, but my company's based in Annapolis, Maryland.
Okay.
Very good. So you're all over the place.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I am.
Dublin. I was, my first business reporting stint was at the Columbus Dispatch over there. So covered some business stuff in Dublin. Those many years ago.
Yeah. Cincinnati was one of our first homes.
Oh, okay.
So
very cool. So excited to have you. I've been like sort of kind of stalking you on LinkedIn for a while.
A social stalker.
Yeah.
Hopefully in a healthy way.
Yes. I try to have the healthy social media habits. But,
I know. I saw that you just joined Chief. That was awesome.
Yes. We could talk about that.
Yeah.
We can talk about that.
Thank you.
But first, just tell us a little bit about Revolution Cyber and your little, journey from the beginning to where we are now.
Sure. So I'm the CEO and founder of Revolution Cyber. We are a security culture by design firm. We partner with high growth tech and financial services companies to build out security culture from the ground up, turning employee insights into action. So I decided to start this company in 2019 after serving as SVP of sales and marketing for a small startup recently sold to Goldman Sachs.
Wow.
And when I started that company, part of what I saw, in the role of sales is that security people weren't very good at communicating on behalf of themselves, advocating for themselves, and creating relationships. And what I was able to do in sales was create teams that built relationships really quickly, were thought leaders, and then could help the organization to navigate how to integrate new technology that was emerging and perhaps they hadn't interacted with previously. And Revolution Cyber started because I thought I did a really large project for a global cruise line. And it took me about 6 to 8 months between sales and completion of the project. And ultimately, we were able to build a global security awareness program for this large customer. And then I said to myself that if we were able to do that and they have the interest, that other companies must as well. And I found that assumption to be true. And thus my business began.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So the previous company, just to make sure that we were understanding right, was that, were you a founder in that company as well?
I was not a founder per se, but I was the first employee.
Okay. So you're on the founding team.
Yes.
So watching companies grow and exit.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. Yeah. So so curious to learn about that process, actually. That's one of the things that is a real interest.
Like you came on board, you're the first employee for this startup and really watching them grow and then obviously then exit to a, Goldman Sachs. That's an accomplishment. What was that journey like? What were there a lot of like, this is not good, or was it all like, wow, this is pretty exciting,
Yes. It's the entrepreneur journey as a whole is just a lot of mixed feelings. You're both happy and sad in the same moment, right? You're happy you got this big customer, but you're sad that you've got all this work in front of you. So I would say across my journeys, it's been just a mixture of like good and bad, vacation and business. Like that's my life. But what I'll say is when I was going to school, I studied communications, and then went to law school, expecting to do this very traditional, very narrow role. And then when I chose not to practice law school, going into sales meant that I was always jumping into new situations, navigating new companies, products, and then also solutions and how to build those out for customers. So the idea from my trajectory of jumping into a company and being the first one and having to demonstrate revenue was right up my alley. I feel like everything I'd done before, it kind of prepared me for it, but I didn't know that that's where I would go with it. I also, my first job in security was as a director of sales, and that company was sold. Then I got into this role that I mentioned as SVP, and that company was sold. And then actually, I recently was first employee for another company, Habituate, that was also sold to Arctic Wolf. So I have a lot of experience in, growing revenue, finding the right team, hiring the team, and then finding the right sustainable model that then other companies then want to acquire or strategically partner with.
So what made you take the leap to go, okay, now it's my turn.
Yeah.
Now I've helped these companies build and grow and sell. Now I'm doing it. What was that?
And money, right? So when you're a salesperson, you may make anywhere between 10 and 20% of the bag, but you do most of the work. Whereas I felt like I'd like to take 90% of the bag, maybe split it with someone else, but I'm taking home the lion's share of the dollars.
Right.
And when did that thinking start happening? Was it exit number 1, 2, or 3?
I think by exit. So the company I started with in 2015, they just exited this year. So it's a 7-year run for them. Okay. I was with them for the first 3 to 4, 4 years actually. And I would say that there's a mindset and an environment that you tend to grow and develop in that is addictive. And I would say that the lure of taking what I've learned, applying it, and then also having perhaps my own exit, I just couldn't say no to that. That's like everything that I want to happen for us.
And what do you see for Revolution Cyber? Are you on that trajectory now? Are you trying to build something, for another exit? Is that what you're thinking about, or the legacy company for you?
Upfront thinking about my exit. I'm thinking about whether what I'm building has value and is sustainable, right? Because if I decide to stay in it for 20 years, it's a good business. And if I decide to exit, I get a bigger valuation. So where we are is we are automating our processes. A lot of our processes started very manual. We're building out a proprietary platform that will automate communications campaigns for all of our customers. And the idea is scaling that platform so that we're starting to gather intelligence. And then if we find that there are partners, investors, those who have an interest in, seeing the growth of our company and going along the journey, then we'll talk to them and see where that leads us. But today we're really fixated on what that next phase is, which is automation and scale.
Hey, Jules, when you're making the shift to, you've worked for these tech companies, fast growth companies, and now you're owning, what has been the biggest shock, or I'm not sure I was prepared for this as a founder versus a senior level employee?
I am a magnificent visionary. I have the ability to build relationships and sell, but the administration and operations go hand in hand. And I am not an administrative diva. I have never been. In fact, my first job has never been working as an assistant for someone. I was always in command. And so when you're a founder, you have to keep it lean. So you do as little as possible. You bring on as little team as possible, which means you wear multiple hats. Yeah. The operations hat is the sustainability, and it is not my strength. And so I've had to hire for it. Hiring for my weaknesses has been the biggest lesson for me.
How long did it take before you realized, did you just know immediately that was a problem, or did you try first and then?
No, I tried first. Of course, I've got to go with my head rammed straight into the wall before I actually learn my lesson sometimes. So it was the first 2 years I was burnt out and exhausted and not getting the results, So if you're getting the results and you're tired, it's one thing. It's when you're not seeing the results, things are harder than they should be, which lends itself to systems thinking. Right. And I just had to finally say to myself, I'm miserable. My employees are working harder than they should. I got to step out of the way. And my employees kept bringing it to my attention. So I finally just listened, right?
And so you're shifting toward automation to help you scale. How have you identified which parts need to really stay hands on? Because you're on the cultural side of the business, right?
Yes.
And so you're not just in there doing like an enterprise IT situation. And so I'm curious to know how are you figuring out, okay, which parts of the business can and should be automated, and which parts do we really have to stay hands on?
So the parts of the business that impact customer experience must be automated immediately. So onboarding into the customer, payments, the delivery of tools and services, the delivery of documents, all of that must be automated, because the better experience and the less friction a customer has, the more they'll give you their money. And it turns out it's not by coincidence. So those are the things that we're working on first. The parts that still require hands-on are because cultural anything projects, they tend to be very, very human interaction required. And so I want my program managers to have the conversations that they need to with the customers, not to automate responses to things, to have someone who's a human being who cares about the problems of the customer to be their first interaction. So the places in which emotion or thinking decisions must be made, I think we are continuing to have human interaction guiding us there.
And Jules, when you're shifting into you made a comment of you kind of got addicted to this culture of going into these companies, building the revenue, watching them exit. What kind of culture and energy and attitude are you forming in your own company? Is it that same kind of environment, or are you looking for something a little bit different?
Well, if you'd asked me that in years 1 and 2, I would say our entire culture was a sales culture, and it was toxic. It was about what we were closing, how quickly we were delivering, and how great our customers said we were. What I've done and what I've shifted now is I want to build teams of women, mostly, who go out into the world and they are leaders. And so what we have now is, first, a servant leadership culture. I actually spend a lot of times developing professionally and personally the women who work with me. I also am very clear about leadership positions that will surround me as we grow as a company, being really focused on not those who have the potential, but those who demonstrate the passion, right? So it doesn't have to mean that you're the best at what it is that you're doing today. It means that you have the willingness and the desire and the drive to get where you need to get to in order to do this role right. And so that's the culture that we're building. It's all about growth, making mistakes, and really being a strong team internally and with our customers externally.
What changed your mindset about that?
Right. What was that aha moment for you?
Ooh. The aha moment was in between years 2 and 3. I had to let a few people go. And part of what I recognized was they were delivering, the customers loved them, but internally they were causing so much toxicity that I didn't enjoy working at the company, and people kept coming to me and telling me they didn't enjoy it. And I started this company so that we could build projects that we felt proud of and that we enjoyed. And so it had to be, letting people go in the way I had to let them go, to me was so painful that I wanted to be very deliberate about how I handled it and who we brought on moving forward.
So do you have to do some reflection moments of, what are the type of characteristics? We just went through that exercise as a new startup ourselves of, as we start to expand our team, who is it that we want a part of our team? And a lot of it is not the skill sets. It's the character of ours is you have to be curious. You need to show hunger and passion for the business that we're in. You need to also show a little bit of humility. I mean, those are our big characteristics that we look for. What are some characteristics that when you guys have defined those soft skills or those attitudes, what are those words? What are those characteristics?
Active listening. They have to be people who are actively listening first before they speak. You also have to be a critical thinker. And so you don't need the answers handed to you. You're curious. And you're taking different sources. You're doing your research in order to come to a decision. And then I would finally say I don't like the term team player, but you have to be collaborative.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to be someone who, in teams of, multiple people, when the customer asks you to come on site, you're someone who wants to collaborate for the best answer, and you don't know the answer going in, so you want to collaborate to get to that answer. So all of those things, I think, they demonstrate your ability to be a good person in general. I don't want people to come in, they're one person at work and then another person in their home. A lot of times you forget that line, and the line just shifts you more and more to you being the not so collaborative and thoughtful person inside the office too. The lines are so blurred between work and personal. We've got to take that into consideration, where people are their whole selves at work.
Why don't you like the term team player?
Oftentimes, even like I've got 2 daughters, and they're in school, and they often put on teams. And most teams you have, each person has a defined role. And people fall into that naturally. So if you put a team together, people will adopt a role, and then they will come to that team with the same role every time. If you're collaborative, you don't come with any expectation of a role, what you'll do.
That is such a good point.
Working together to figure out the best people who are set for the particular task at hand. So I prefer collaborative rather than team player.
I love that.
Yeah, that makes
Jules,
such
that makes
great
it
sense.
because one of the things that I'm on my second founded business, and I'm like, I feel like I'm failing up. Because you just learn, you learn through all the mistakes. But we've been through OrangWip. We've been having all these conversations with different founder-led organizations and entrepreneurs, innovators, and all that. And one of the biggest, especially for smaller businesses, those, whether they've been around for 2 years or they've been around for 20, they're still kind of a 20 person or less kind of team. And to your point of their biggest struggle with employees is people come in and go, well, that's not in my job description. And even if you write in the job description, you need to be open to do any task to, to help the company build revenue. They have come in like, well, I'm a team, they use, well, I'm a team player. I'm doing my role. And it's this larger conversation, I think of, we've called it as, is this things that are happening within the workforce of work ethic issues.
Yes.
But I like, we use the word collaborative, but we also say team player, but I love how you've defined it to kind of get people thinking not in the role. It is, what are you doing to move either that client, that, your customer forward, or you're moving the business that, the bottom line forward.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people are walking into workforce with that mindset.
Yeah. Or even if they've been around a lot, because, it's a time when you really don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we never did have certainty, but that's just more apparent than it's ever been. And I'm thinking, like, when you talk about a collaborator versus a team player, well, when the environment shifts or the company has to grow or shift, if you've got collaborators, they can come with you instead of, wait, this was what I'm doing. So not even like necessarily people are coming in, but people who have grown with you when things change. If you've got collaborators.
And it's the problem solvers.
Yeah. So they're like, here's the new situation. Let's come together and figure out, what do I do here instead of what do I do on my checklist? Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yes.
Was that, when did you come to that mindset? How did you figure out that was a better way?
Because I've been on really high performing teams and the ones that don't perform very well. And the high performing teams, everyone's doing what they need to for the performance, for the end result, the outcome. On the teams that I've been on where we're failing, everyone says, this is what I've always done. They are very clear on what they should be doing in this situation and very rarely consider themselves in new roles. So I had to stop using that for my company as well.
How has that shifted the mindset of your team? Have they all welcomed that and go, I get it now? Or Are you having to remind people of that?
So I would say, because of the nature of our work and how dynamic it is, I think people appreciate it, but not really in the moment. I think a lot of times they'll go into a new challenge where I'm not around, and what I've pushed as a mindset helps them to understand the situation. They go, oh, now I get why you think of it this way and why you do it this way. But a lot of them are also learning by failing up as well. And that's part of the process.
Yeah.
You know?
How do you give people room to fail, especially, you're in a growing competitive field. I mean, it seems like all of a sudden overnight,
cybersecurity.
Well, cyber, but then there's also this cultural aspect of cyber. It's like everybody woke up and was like, oh,
there's a human aspect,
right? And that's it's critical.
Yes.
And so as that has become more of an understanding in the business world. Now there are more, revolution cybers out there popping up, and it seems to me relatively quickly. So how do you make space for trying to be competitive and responsive and fast, but also allowing your team to figure things out and be who they need to be?
You don't have to do it deliberately if you're somebody who fails publicly. I will tell you that I don't hide my failures from my team, or if something happened that didn't go the way I want to, I'm always telling them the story. And what that does, by them seeing, not me saying that I failed and I'm talking about it and I'm coming up with a resolution, they know that they can also fail too, because I'm encouraging myself to share and I'm asking them to share back. Yeah. So as a team, we're always asking ourselves, well, what could we have done better? And if that's the way we run the business, then we understand that there will be places that we fail. It's okay. What I do judge people on is on how it is that they come back and learn the lesson. Because if you continue to fail in the same way, it means you're not learning any lessons from it. But my encouragement is fail in new ways. Don't keep failing the old way because you're not learning. So right. we embrace failure in our organization, mostly because we are pairing ourselves in the industry with innovators, and they understand the power of failure. So we don't take it hard on ourselves. It's just, how quickly can we get to the right answer or a better answer because we failed?
That is interesting.
Yeah, that's great. Because it's already in your vernacular of your business.
Yeah.
With your customers. So embracing that is just, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Have you always been comfortable with the failing in public? This is, again, a big topic right now. I'm going to say it again for anyone who's listening. So we're recording in August of 2022, and that this whole,
CEO vulnerability.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff is like really hot topic right now. And so, so my question was, is that something that is that just how you've always operated, or did you have to come to that yourself?
No. So this has been a journey of personal development at Revolution Cyber for the CEO. I'm Nigerian, and I'm saying that, Jennifer, because you know what that means. It means I'm held to an extremely high standard, and I better not embarrass my parents, literally from when I was a child. And so I was very clear about needing to be successful very early on. And if I think about my first major failure, it was divorce. So I went big or went home, right? So the first big failure for me was getting the divorce. And it was after I started to heal from that I understood that it was okay to fail. And I needed to be there for other people so that they felt okay to fail. Because literally, if I don't allow myself to fail, people won't take that as a message they can. And so I had to have that public, my community went crazy when we got our divorce. After that, it was like, I already failed big time. I'm going to just keep going and see what else happens. And it's perfectly timed.
Yeah.
It's perfectly timed to the beginning of my business. I literally, got a divorce. And then the next year, the January, I was like, what am I doing here? Let me go start my business. And if I fail at that, it's fine. I've already failed already. It's good. We'll just move on.
Oh, I love that. That's a big one. When you said you left law school, inside I was like, ooh, law career.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, I know how that went.
Oh my gosh. My mother till today, no, she'll say now, I've always supported your career. But my mother didn't talk to me for a few weeks after I told her, like, I can't be a lawyer. I'm over it. I can't do it. Yeah.
So, Jules, thank you for being on. Your message has been empowering and encouraging to me personally. So I know it'll be, widely received and accepted.
So folks can check out Revolution Cyber. I know you're super active on LinkedIn. They can do that. And Jennifer, where can they find us?
They can find us at this podcast, Hello Chaos, can be found on your favorite podcast platform, wherever you listen, or you can find us on our website, OrangWip, WIP.com. So it's orangewip.com, which means work in progress. But you can find everything about OrangWip, our media company, Hello Chaos, the podcast, as well as our local digital digests.